Today's episode is brought to you in part by S.T. Holmes, author of Creole Moon, Book of Roots, found on Amazon, and SuzanneTropaz.com.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about my guest. Today I will be speaking with Robert Maddox, and he will be sharing a book that his mother has authored, and I'm so excited to have him on to talk about the book, The World That Was the World of the Black Man, and what happened to it. So go on and get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Robert. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we get started talking about your mother's book, I always give every guest an opportunity to introduce themselves. Now, we do understand that you are sharing the book that your mother wrote. So, if you will, can you tell us a little bit about who your mother was? I cannot wait to hear about Cassana.
My mom was a New Yorker, transplant New Yorker who moved out to California to be with her sons while they were in the military. She was a Navy veteran, went to school in high school in New York, graduated from Fordham-University at Lincoln Center and the Teachers College at Columbia University. She received a scholarship that was offered by the government of Saudi Arabia to study at King Abdulaziz University in Mecca. And after that, she began a career as a college professor, traveling to countries like Iraq, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, and some other African and Middle Eastern countries, where she taught English as a second language, history, and did her own research in history while she was traveling, moving about.
Now, being an author, is that one of the many things that your mother has always wanted to do, or did you find that you wanted to help her legacy and put her writings into a book form so that you could share this information with the rest of us?
I think my mother became an author because of the interest that her mother and father placed in her and her brother in African history. They grew up in a time when my grandparents were influenced by people like Marcus Garvey and other notable historical persons. And they actually, even before she went to university, she and her brother went to Nigeria and Ghana to see what was going on there and what life was like there in Africa. I don't know if she actually wanted to be an author all of her life, but she did want to tell a story about what she found there and what she was exposed to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I admire so many people that are like that. I know that I am that type of person, hence that's probably why I'm on radio and TV, is that when I find out something, I want to share it with the rest of the world because it could inspire, enlighten, or empower someone else to be encouraged to step out in faith or to step out and do that thing that they have been called or purposed to do. So I can definitely understand it. It may not have been something in the beginning, but what a great way to help her with her legacy. Now, the title of the book, do you know how the title came to be the title? I know many authors have a working title. Many of the guests that I've had on, that they too are sharing the works of their parents. the title many times is a saying or a phrase that they used to say all the time, or an expression that they used to use. How did the title of this book come about?
I believe that the title of the book came about because, well, when you think about Black history, we kind of get pigeonholed, I think, here in the United States into thinking about Black people in slavery, or Black people in Africa, when Black people are actually distributed across the planet. There are Black people in northern India who were descendants of people brought there for the purpose of slavery. There are Black people in the South Pacific. There are even Black people in some parts of China that were there for hundreds of years ago. And it opens up a broader discussion. The book's title might suggest that maybe it's about one group of people, but the book's subject matter encompasses humanity as a whole and the interactions between us as those exchanges affected global civilization. I think she talks about the relationship between the Aryan conquerors of India and the Hindustani people that were there in what is now India, and how it affected Hindustani history.
I cannot agree with you. I cannot agree with you more. There are definitely African descendants all over this beautiful earth of ours, and I think people need to. I don't think they're making the connection, though they may speak a different language. We are all interconnected, and we are definitely all of the same people. Thank you so much for that reminder. Now, I wanted to make sure that I asked you about the subject of the book. For many people, and you started to touch on that, but I want to give you enough time to talk about that. And what does the subject matter? The world that was the world of the Black man. That is such a curious part. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How does that tie in with the subject or the theme of the book?
The world that was the world of the Black man, like I said, is the global interaction of dark-skinned people, Black people, as they spread through the world. The influence exerted by the Romans, by the Indian people of the Oriental India, by everywhere they traveled, how they were changed and how they changed the world around them. It's about contact between civilizations and how that contact affected the laws and cultures of the pre-existing peoples of subjugated, colonized countries and countries that were not subjugated or colonized.
Now, are you aware of how your mother conducted her research? I know that many people that have, for example, I've spoken with a lot of folks that were engineers before they were authors, or they were educators before they were authors. So they've taken that education, that training that they've received, and utilized that in a way that makes them quite masterful at the research that needs to be done for this book. Are you aware of how much research your mother had to do, or did she ever mention a place in which she was just so excited because she found a wealth of information in a particular place?
Well, as a master's student, you have to learn to conduct research. So while she was in country, she would conduct research, ask questions of people for her, and through her university studies in Middle Eastern history and language, as well as on-site interviews and discussions as she traveled and visited with families and their elders of Southern Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. While she was in school at the university, at King Abdulaziz University, she made contact and friends with people who lived in other countries that were also invited there to study Islam and study Arabic. and those friendships lasted or were to the point where she was invited into people's homes, into the country, and she went. She would talk to people, and people were glad to share their stories with her about what their history was, about what their countries were. And she used that in her book. She also, where she taught in northern Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Libya, Ghana, and some other places that I can't remember right now because I've lost track of her passport. But she became very well traveled and was exposed to a lot of different cultures and histories that are not exactly acknowledged here in the United States.
Right. And, I wanted to jump in there because I wanted to ask, because we don't have too much time left in this segment, but I wanted to ask, did she ever mention if there was a particular reason why she went to, especially Nigeria and Ghana? We understand that many of the enslaved Africans that ended up in the United States were, of course, from the western coast of Africa. Was that one of her motivating factors as far as why she chose to go to Nigeria and Ghana? Do you know?
Yes. I know that, like I previously mentioned, she was actually encouraged by her mother and her father, she and her brother, to travel to Nigeria and Ghana. I wish I could tell you their influence, what influenced them, but they've been gone a while, so I really didn't get a chance to talk to them about things like that.
Of course, and that happens, and so many times we are so willing to share much more information as we get older, as opposed to when we're younger, simply because we're living the life. We're still creating the experiences or living the experience. But when you're older and perhaps your physical body has slowed down, but your mind is so able to share those experiences because you're not able to get out and about as much anymore. And it's a shame that we still do that and we don't share as much as we could earlier, because I tell you, our grandparents have a wealth of information and knowledge that they could share. Now, I want to ask for some of those specifics about the book itself. As far as the ideal reader is concerned, that this book is appropriate for someone as young as high school, or do you suggest college age and older?
I've been around African American students who are high school age as I've gotten older, and there are some of them who would definitely get into this book. They would be interested in learning more about the entirety of the world, instead of just that black people were slaves and just the few notables that American black history offers you. I think they'd be more interested in the world than just in a small microcosm. Absolutely. So let me ask this, because you said African American students. Are you saying that this book is therefore not appropriate for non-black students, or would this also be a really good read for anyone, but it's also appropriate as young as the age of high school? Is that what you're saying? I'm saying that it would be appropriate for anyone.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to give that clarification, because you started off with African American students, and I was thinking, this should be something everyone should definitely want to know about. And I think that if we were to do that, if we were to stop just reading things that are just about who we are and what we look like, but learn about other people's, we would understand that we are so much more alike. We may have a little more or a little less melanin, but people in general are so much more alike than we realize that we may have learned in school. Thank you so much, Robert, for that answer. Well, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, let me remind you, we are talking about the book, The World That Was the World of the Black Man and What Happened to It. The author is Cassana Nalisi, and it is available on Amazon or where books are sold. You can find out more about her and the book at cassana-maddox-nablisi.com. We'll be back right after this.
Thank you to today's sponsor, St. Holmes, author of Creole Moon, Book of Roots, found on Amazon, and SuzanneTropaz.com.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Robert Maddox, but we are talking about the book, The World That Was the World of the Black Man and What Happened to It. This is his mother's book, and her name is Cassana Nalisi, and I'm so excited to have him on the show today. Now, my next question for you, Robert, is with your mother's intention, so many authors are trying to make sure that they get over a true and authentic expression. And you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. What do you think was the overarching message that you wanted your mother to convey in her writings?
I believe that she felt that there was a need for African American descendants of slavery to speak for themselves, as other American communities have done and continue to do so, in expressing who they are and what they believe in for themselves. She believed that African-American scholars are capable of doing the scientific research into who we are, have been, and can be in the future, and should do so as she had done. She wrote this book out of what she felt was a significant rate of change where the nation and the entire world were transforming. But we are still struggling to find answers to our own lost identity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it is so true, because if you do not take the time to learn about yourself, to learn about your own culture, then you're missing out on such a beautiful part of who you are. Many cultures will remind you that when you're reading about history, that you're reading about his story. You're reading about the story that another person is telling about you. But when you read both sides or all sides, you're able to really see who you are. And you're right, Americans do need to realize that Black people were not slaves when they were brought here. They became enslaved, but they were not slaves when they were brought here. So you are so right there. What the word choices that we put out there are so important, and I think that your mother is on to something important here. Now, what was the need for information that you think she was trying to fill? For many people, it could be, we hear people say, you're descendants of kings and queens, you're descendants of land barons. But many people have a very hard time believing that, because they've only heard the story of the slave when it comes to the African man that is in the States. Do you think that there was a particular portion that she was trying to fill, especially for our students that would be reading the book?
I believe she wanted us to know who we are, not from a slogan that somebody, probably well-intending, provided, but she wanted us to know ourselves as global citizens of the world that were not limited to just one small definition. I truly believe that she wanted to inspire people to learn to do research. You don't have to have an advanced degree or anything. Just learn to question and sift through the answers you get from your questions, so that you get a good idea of what is and what isn't.
Oh yes, I could not agree with you more. And unfortunately, when we're talking about history, it can become a touchy subject for some people, because there's bits and pieces of history that unfortunately are hurtful. They are a very dark time. Some people have said it could be a stain on one's country, and it's true. But guess what? It's true. You know, it happened, and the same way that we need to heal from any past things that have happened. The best way to heal is to talk about it, to put it out there. And I think that your mother was really doing a really good thing. When we learn to see people as humans, when we learn to see them as our fellow brothers and sisters in faith, then we're able to see them the way that God sees them, and not as just something less than, but something that is equal to. And I think that is so awesome. I love that she wanted to do that. Now, when it came to deciding what to include or what to exclude, every author has that decision to make. Every publishing company, or even if you self-publish, everyone has to decide, include this many pages, this many chapters. When it came time for you to do that in the process, what was that like for you?
For me, it was kind of a no-brainer. I wanted her entire message out there because it was her message. My message would not necessarily be the same as hers. My experiences as an adult are not the same as hers. So I wanted everything that she felt was important to be out there. So there was no choice there was only one choice for me, and that was to present the entire body of her work.
I like how you were very mindful of that, and in the way in which you wanted to honor her. And you are so right. I look at the things that my grandmother experienced versus my mother or father, versus how I'm able to move about the world versus how my son is able to move throughout the world. And you are so right. Each generation has their own view, has their own understanding, and it is quite curious how so many countries, the world, the globe over, we've made such great strides in so many areas, but there's still things that I think every country, if we sit down and talk to them, there's still room to make improvements. But hey, we're people, so we're not perfect. So I definitely understand that. That being said, do you think that someone may be saying, well, your mother was of a particular generation. Maybe that's not still happening in the world today. How is it relevant to today? Many people have a hard time understanding how things of the past are also relevant today. How would you address that person?
I would address that person by saying that I'm watching the news. I look at YouTube, newspaper, and magazine articles. Very little has actually changed. I mean, on the surface, there might be some cosmetic changes that make life seem maybe it's better than it was, but there are still things that need to be addressed. And we don't really have the luxury of just going about as though life were okay and, all roses and all that other good stuff. We need to know where we're going. And my personal opinion is that we don't really know where we're going in the United States as a people. The book is for everybody. I mean, it's for everybody to get a sense of what this person saw in their interpretation of the world around them. But it's also a call for people to take an honest look at the past, beyond the United States, into the world itself, because you need to know where you've been to know where you're going in the future. You need to have a roadmap, a plan for what you're trying to do, instead of just going through life as though it doesn't really matter, or somebody else is in control and everything is going to be okay.
I know that as someone personally who enjoys history, I find history to be quite enlightening. We learn about the personalities of the people who have gone on before us. We learn about their temperaments, about what helped make them them, and the things that they had to endure. And my listeners have heard me say, I have one grandmother who was born in 1908, who was a biracial baby, and during a time where that wasn't exactly accepted, and how her life was in comparison to today, and how we view race and culture and ethnicity and history and the bits and pieces that have gone on in the world. So I do understand, and I hear what you are saying, and where do we want to go as a people? Where do we want to go as a nation? Where do we want to go as a culture? And we must. It reminds you many times of that beautiful Sankofa bird, that looking back, but ever moving present, knowing what has happened before, so that we do not repeat those things that were those blotches, were those stains, perhaps, but making sure that we address those and move forward positively. I love what you are bringing and sharing here, and I thank you for being mindful enough to try not to change your mother's vision or your mother's dream of sharing her knowledge, but honoring her just enough to let it stand and hold true. With that being said, Robert, I want to say thank you so much for spending time with me here today. But before I let you go, can you please remind us, what is your mother's name? What is the title of this book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
My mother's name is Cassana-Maddox-Nablisi. The name of the book is The World That Was the World of the Black Man. cassana-maddox-nablisi.com.
Thank you again for being a guest here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you for having me.
And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here as well. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to spend it with us today, and I appreciate your doing so. Of course, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.